So the plan today is to at least finish the 5 other types, and then if there's time, we'll introduce some other curriculum to you.
So what we told you was we introduced the 8, 9, and 1 that are body-based types. Okay, so our base, not that we don't all have bodies, because of course we do, but there's a special way that the body can show up. I know as a body-based type, I can get warnings or sensing of situation when I feel really good throughout my body more than, say, somebody else who may not be a body-based type would necessarily report. Because today we're going to be looking at 2, 3, and 4.
We did 2, so we're going.
Yeah, but we'll just do it quick.
Yeah. And I just want to add to what Sandra was saying. Take this lightly, but it's often true that 8, 9s, and 1s kind of their intuition feels bodily based. 2, 3, and 4, their intuition seems more like a feeling they pick up, and emotion. 5, 6, and 7, it's more like a thought.
But again, I want to repeat, of course we all have bodies, we all have emotions, and we all have thoughts. It's just there's as you pay more attention over time, and there's some comparison, much comparison that's been done, there's just a little more of it in those categories. Okay.
And as we said, we did 2 last time. This is the image triad. And again, we all like to be loved, appreciated. 2, 3, and 4, it's a have to have all the time, not just a nice to have now and then. And so you'll see whether you relate to, you remember 2 was the dutiful version of, if I'm just helpful enough, then you'll love me, then you'll appreciate me.
And you'll need me. And remember, we were talking about the 2, 3, and 4 experience shame when they're not living up to what they believe they need to live up to, and the 2 in particular to be needed. Now let's look at the 3. What's really
well, have to do the music first.
I always want to forget that music.
So the music of 3. Life is something you have to kind of keep active all the time. There's always something to do, something to be successful at. Life is just kind of going. I don't stop very long, and then I keep right back in it because there's always more to do. This is what it feels like inside me. It's close all the time.
So if you are, if you're,
which is a little different than the 9. Like, it's a beautiful day. Anyway, sorry.
If you're an Enneagram 3 and you're striving a lot of the time to be outstanding, what's really good about that? Not pressuring, but really striving to be outstanding and making contributions through being outstanding. What's good about that?
You're trying to produce like the best work, or like raise the bar or progress things.
That's right. That's right. And when it's reasonable, that's a huge contribution, is it not?
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things, so go ahead. Yeah, and one of the things 3 is known for at a higher level is being adaptive, like being able to find the way to get toward whatever the goal is.
But what's really important here is that we talk again, like we did last time, about level of development. A high level 3 has that in perspective. I want to be outstanding. That's my desire if I'm a 3, to make contributions that are making a huge contribution. But if I'm at the average, low average, or average level of development, I'm going to demand that of myself. I'm going to have to be seen as outstanding. What's the problem with that?
They might struggle with failure.
Yes.
Bouncing back from that.
Absolutely.
Very much.
Or even stumbling at all.
Yeah.
Depending on how much of an obsession that is. Or when it's just a drive, it can be something to be aware of. And most 3s are aware of that challenge. But when it's a demand that I be seen that way, then the shame starts to show up if I don't see myself that way and if I'm not acknowledged.
Yeah, in fact, building on what you said about failure, some years back we were working with a marketing team and they had enough 3s on there so we could do a panel. A panel is when you have there was maybe 5 of them sitting in front of the room where we could ask them questions. And one question we asked the 3 panel was, have you ever failed at anything? And they all sort of looked at each other like, what was that word?
Yeah, and what does it mean?
Because part of the underlying shame, like Sandra was talking about for 3 is, I have to quickly reframe everything as a success or as something that I'm learning, because failure really hurts.
The other thing, if you use the words that you have to be recognized or viewed as outstanding, is you're relying on your measure of self-worth based on your perception of the opinions of others.
Mhm.
So you're not internally satisfying your need to be, you're not internally going, yes, I'm a valuable person. You're going, do others think I'm a valuable person? And that can be a very difficult place to be in.
Yeah, it's a really good.
I just want to say what you're demonstrating is reflection, aren't you? That you're not only seeing how others may be projecting or letting you know how they see you, but also, wait a minute, how is that seen in perspective? But remember that we cannot reflect unless what? It all sounds reasonable, but if we're at that low average level, we can't reflect. And what does it require for us to be able to routinely reflect on the reasonableness of myself, my habits and patterns? Anybody remember?
Awareness.
Okay, it takes awareness, but it also takes practice. We don't automatically wake up and reflect unless we practice reflection, unless we build that in. So, Tom, what you're suggesting is really important, and it puts things in the right perspective, because some things we don't have control over. But if I don't know that and I'm not reflecting on what kinds of things, what's in the pond, what's going on, not that I'm not responsible, I'm going to not be able to take the kind of perspective you mentioned.
Yeah, and the other thing, building on what you said, is at the average to low average level, it's, am I being successful? And so one of the things that you find, while 3s at high performance are inspiring to people and create a sense that we're in it together, at average to low average, it's more about how am I doing? And so I'm more likely to be highlighting my own successes, and maybe not, if I have a team, not letting them shine, because the first priority is, am I shining?
Or is that going to keep me from shining?
Yeah, that's right. Now,
But remember, from a very early age, if I'm was a little 3 and now an adult 3, I've had a lifetime of demanding that I meet those standards. And if I'm not reflecting, it doesn't even occur to me that I'm in situations at times when they're not reasonable standards.
now you can see on the slide again the 2 words, success-oriented, pragmatic type. And also, you can see that list of adjectives from adaptable and self-developing, which is really important. 3s are almost always trying to become better, down to efficient, but then image conscious, where it's really about me. And you'll see on the core qualities, this is a very high end of 3. Also, authenticity is one of the hallmarks of 3s at high performance. And you remember, we said that one of the main ways to help type yourself is looking at the emotional energies. That if you're an 8, you know what that intensity feels like inside, of like, I'm always pushing a little harder than I have to. If you're a 9, you know what that feels like. The kind of apathetic, oh, why even try? Like, it's just not worth it.
Or it's all good all the time, so why am I even concerned?
Yeah, if you're a 1, you know what it's like inside to be always like frustrated. I'm just not who I should be. The world isn't the way it should be. If you're a 2, that sense of, I just need to be actively making other people feel better, the ingratiating part. For a 3, it's called vanity. And vanity doesn't just mean looking in the mirror, but it means, I mean, I'll speak for myself because I'm a 3. It's a feeling that I'm always carrying an audience with me. I've used the example sometimes, we're both distance runners, and I might be out on a trail, and I pick up garbage sometimes. It's just there, and just purely because it just seems like the right thing to do. I'll pick up garbage sometimes. Now a little less because of COVID, and I don't know who touched that garbage, and then I don't want to wash my hands. But anyway, in general, but almost always if I pick up some garbage, there's immediately that thought in my head, I hope somebody saw me. I hope somebody saw me being, a good person or whatever. It's just this constant, I'm carrying people's eyes with me. That's really what vanity means here. I'm always just aware of how am I showing up? How do I think people are seeing me?
So hopefully it's becoming clear that Joel talked a few minutes ago about the I. And so all of us at the low average, even average level development as adults are looking mostly at me. I look at others, but first at me. Either do I measure up or do others serve me like I want to be served, whatever it is that's relevant. So it's not just the 3 that is doing this. But the vanity, where do you think the vanity comes from here?
You're wanting the value of how other people see you creates vanity.
Yeah, it's like I made a decision early that my value, like I said, is in other people's eyes. And so therefore I'm always looking at what I'm producing. And for some 3s, what I'm producing is my own image. Am I looking stylish and wonderful? For other people, am I producing really high quality work? But it's always about what am I producing in some way, and is that being valued?
And we all care to some degree about how others see us, but this is a real focal point for the 3.
And so remember that there's emotional energy, and then the mind always does something to support that.
We can't forget the incredible contributions of a high level 3. What comes to you about the high level 3? It's really about achieving. And not just whether, if I'm at high level, I'm not just concerned about whether I'm achieving. It's whether we're achieving and what I need to do to assist that. So what are the gifts here that we're talking about?
Let's strive for excellence.
That's right. That's right. And it isn't till that average or low average level that my overarching focal point is whether I cut it, whether or not, if I'm at higher level, just like with all the types, I'm looking for how my contributions assist others and the organization and in general.
Yeah. Now, in understanding this habit of mind, it's really important to understand what deceit really means. At really low levels, it might be classic deceit. I am a used car salesman, or I'm telling you that I'm selling you some property or something, and I know that it's not good. But that's not most 3s. What deceit really means here is 2 things. One of them is that I deceive myself about who I am because I need to be my image of what I should be all the time. So I'll see myself in a particular way. Part of why this is important, Stan was talking about reflection, but we reflect from our Enneagram types. An 8 will reflect with intensity. A 9 will reflect with, oh, everything's probably fine. A 1 will tend to reflect with a critical eye. A 2 will reflect in a way that doesn't pay any attention usually to the 2's own needs. The tendency of a 3, I can relate to, is when I reflect, I'll tend to see how things go. Oh yeah, it went great. And maybe it didn't go great. And so there's a self-deceit. That's the first part. And the other is I'm going to project who I think I need to be. But it's not like it's subconscious, I'm fooling you. It's like I'm just embodying the image of what I think will get your approval. And I'm not really in touch with it. Maybe that's not who I am. So this is a much more subtle deceit.
At the low average and above, at the low level development with all of us, there's deceit, all the types.
You can see the wake up call, the music sort of played this out. Part of, if you're wondering if you're a 3, there's something which is typical of pretty much all 3s, which is that when we go into task mode, into doing mode, we cut off our feelings because feelings get in the way of efficiency, and we really care about efficiency. And so if you're 3, somebody comes into your office and says, "Can I talk?" And you, of course, respond with the appropriate, "Oh, sure, come in. What's happening?" But internally, it's, I was just getting stuff done. I can't believe you're here right now. And there's also a feeling, if you're wondering if you're a 3, of I can tell that I'm cut off from real feelings, and I know that I'm sort of imitating feelings, and it's sincere and it's genuine. I really want you to feel cared for, but I'm not in my heart until I'm at high performance for 3. And so the wake-up call is I'm doing, but I'm actually not enjoying what I'm doing. I'm not valuing what I'm doing. I'm not loving what I'm doing. I don't have time for that. And our heart has to be open to feel the value of what we're doing.
Now, I think what's important to mention here is 3s often report they feel incredibly guilty if they're not doing. So it's kind of almost like the gerbil wheel of doing, because that's the only way that if I'm a 3, I can feel like I'm cutting it around. I've got to achieve. Beautiful that there's a desire to achieve, but when it is, like with all the types, a drive where I don't have an option, then it's hard to relax.
Yeah, and again, the tragedy of that, I mean, really every type has a tragedy. The tragedy of that for a 3 is I'm never enjoying the value that I'm creating. Even if I'm doing wonderful things, I'm not actually enjoying it. And every type has that version of a tragedy and there's a subtlety here, and maybe we'll go over this more after we've gone through the whole Enneagram. Every type has a core essence that's who we are on a being level. And so you saw it here on the core qualities. It's just, I know the joy of and preciousness of life. It's who I am. All of us, Sandra talks about the age of 2, all of us get cut off from those essence qualities when we're young. It's just part of the process of developing as a soul. And then what we do is we imitate it, but it never really works. And so if I'm a 3, I'm imitating meaningfulness and preciousness. I'm not really experiencing it. And we could go through the whole Enneagram. 8s are trying to do the aliveness and vivaciousness of who they are, but the doing never gets to the actual experience of being. And that's true throughout the Enneagram. 9s, core senses, I belong here. I am here. But no matter how much I'm being nice, that doesn't get me to experience that. 1s, the core is the beauty of life just as it is, the rightness of life exactly as what's happening. But the more I strive to be right, the further away the goal gets, the more I have to do, and it's never enough. And so you'll see that throughout the Enneagram. So that's the 3's version, is no matter how much I do, I can never get back to that being sense of preciousness and value.
One factor I want to raise, and we'll do it as we introduce each of the types, is the 3s, the 7s, and the 8s are the assertive types. Now, from a constructive standpoint, what's the difference between assertion and aggression? Confidence, and you can see confidence, or imagine you see confidence in also someone who is projecting that and it's not real, but also what must be there. I heard somebody else make a comment. What was it?
I said tone.
Tone, okay.
Yeah,
Even,
but that tone, what does that tone convey?
yeah,
Because it's not just like I'm choosing a tone, but there's something different.
Intention.
Yeah,
mhm.
and where the intention is still of being in it together, the intention is still caring.
That's at the high level. But what we have to watch is that if we're being aggressive, It's not as important to us that we be respectful. That's the main distinction between assertion and aggression, is that with assertiveness, yes, I'm clear, direct, straightforward, but I do it in a way that is respectful. What a 3, and a 7, and an 8 can do is pressure themselves when they're really agitated to be overly assertive. They are the assertive types. It doesn't mean the other types can't be assertive, but they are the assertive types, but they can be aggressive at that low average level with that clear directness. And we already told you that the 9 tends to, even though they're an anger type, tends to hold that inside, and you'd be very surprised until they start blowing up because they've been holding things in, that they're more withdrawn. 4, 5s, and 9s are more withdrawn types. It doesn't mean at a high level they're withdrawn, but at an average level.
Yeah, and I just want to build on that because it's important. We mentioned that for 8, 9, and 1, the dilemma is autonomy and not being messed with, and that the 8 is a version that is assertive on that. I'm going to show you how strong I am so you can't mess with me. Here, the 3 is the assertive version of image, which is I'm going to directly do what I think you value. What Sandra's bringing in is really important is at high performance, both 3s and 8s are assertive in a way that's inclusive. It's strong, it's direct, but it's not at the expense of others. Both 3s and 8s, and you see this with a 7 as well when we get to it, at average to low average, it is more aggression. It is more, I'm doing things at your expense. The 8 version of that is, I'm going to keep you off balance so I'm safe. The 3 version is, I'm going to succeed. And part of our experience, almost all executive coaching people choose. But now and then people are sent to executive coaching, kind of like sent to charm school. And when an Enneagram 3 is sent to coaching, it's almost always because they were so driven to get to the goal, so focused to move forward, that they knocked people over on the way. Not because they were trying to hurt people, but they were so goal focused that other people's needs just didn't matter. And so we've worked with 3s who, bent the rules, got their projects funded first in a way that hurt other people, where but they were desperate to succeed. So it's a really good point. And when we get to 7, you'll see again how a 7 will be assertive at high performance and aggressive at low average. You see the direction of integration for 3s, being part of a we instead of just a me.
At the high level.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when 3s do that, this is what a high level Enneagram 3 leader is like.
Incredible contributions, just like all 9 types.
Our 2 examples.
Who do we have?
Bernie Madoff.
You got
Correct.
it?
Yeah.
And
I'll let someone else tell you that it's Oprah Winfrey on the left.
That's right. And so again, and you can see, Oprah is known for bringing people along, for being inclusive, for being inspiring. A lot of people see her as a role model. Bernie Madoff, that was pure deceit. That was, I am going to, and in a nice way, people really liked Bernie Madoff. He had a really good image while he was screwing. So, and here's the chart. And again, you can see the qualities of high performance. And going back to what we started talking about last time, you can see that what will happen to an Enneagram 3 under stress, but also with loss, is first becoming more performance driven. So that's going to be more I just have to succeed. I'm going to be cut off even more from my heart. And this phony and superficial, it's not like choosing to be that. It's almost like if I'm a 3 and I'm moving down, either because of stress or loss, I almost don't have a choice because I keep pushing my heart away because I have to succeed even more. So I'm not trying to be phony. I just can't find the real me.
Well, remember, if you can put yourself in the shoes of a 3 or anybody that has that unbelievable demand to be at the highest level of performance, then what they're going to have to do is project whatever it takes or they think it takes. Some of us can see through that when that act is being put on. Some of it we can't. But we're going to have to project whatever it is to make me satisfied if I'm the 3 with the fact that I am the best. I am excellent at what I do. And the key word is I there. Because remember, at that low average level, I'm not reflecting. I'm not asking. I can't. I haven't been given A, the opportunity, or B, haven't taken up the practice, right?
Yeah.
Many people have not been given the opportunity to know there's more than my habits and patterns, or even that we have habits and patterns. My lenses are just how the world is.
Yeah, and in fact, again, building on what Sandra's saying, and we didn't say this before really, for all 9 types at acute and chronic stress, it's likely we can't reflect at that level. We're so locked into a very tight me that we don't have awareness. You know, there's a possibility of awareness through here, of wake-up calls and such.
But there's something we need to say, and we touched on it last time. All 9 types are under incredible acute and chronic stress right now. There's huge suicide rate, there's huge depression, all kinds of things, huge projection. So what's driving, based on the kinds of things we talked about last time, so many of us to be under acute and chronic stress, no matter how well developed we are? What's driving it right now?
A pandemic?
Yeah.
Well, the pandemic, and what the pandemic has exacerbated what is all over the place with the pandemic, besides health problems?
Well, there's uncertainty.
That's right. That's right. And you can see that at the average level, which is where most of us function, we have a standard set for how we want our lives to go. And if we haven't learned to reflect, what happens is that uncertainty causes us to be what? Anxious, full of anxiety. But none of us are comfortable being anxious. And that's just more uncertainty. So we tend to project onto each other. This is an amazingly different kind of time, even though these kinds of conditions can, not a huge pandemic, but there can be situations like this in people's lives. But this is, as you're saying, Tom, the huge uncertainty is causing a whole lot of problems. And you can see, if I can't reflect on what might be causing my discomfort because I haven't learned to reflect, I automatically project it outward. And in a lot of organizations, a lot of families, a lot of people's lives, there are splits going on because people aren't able to talk to each other in ways where we can share this kind of fear of uncertainty. So the kinds of demands that we're saying, that we're just giving you an example with 3, that a 3 would make on themselves, if there's no way a 3 can figure out, or any type can figure out how to measure up, you can imagine what takes place.
Yeah, I want to build on that because what Sandra's saying is so important here. So one thing that we talked about this in the article a bit too, whether it's stress in general, whether it's these times in particular of loss, potential loss, and anxiety, what you see in a 3 is first this moving down, and that sometimes as a way to not careen into the really bottom, what 3s do is go into fantasy. They get numb, start playing computer games.
Not that everybody doesn't play computer games.
But they'll do things to numb out in a way that's not typical. And that could be binging on Netflix, it could be binging on alcohol, it could be a lot of things, but it's sort of doing things I don't have to feel things. But the other part, which we haven't, I think we'll do this more when we come back around, is the projection that she was talking about. That the lower I go as a 3, first, the more shame I start to feel about, and question my own value. But if I'm not self-aware, I'll project that out there, like maybe other people are taking credit for my work, or other people are looking at me in a way where they think that I'm not good enough. I'll start to see people around me, and I'll make them actors in my internal drama. And we'll go back and through all 9 types and what they project.
Yeah.
But what she's saying is really important. It's one of the ways you might, again, if you're a 3 and under stress, you start to feel like people are taking credit for things or making it hard for you to shine.
Or if I am an Enneagram 8, and if I have a sense because of what's going on and I'm not using my reflection skills, which you can imagine I have a lot of, then I can buy into the fear of being harmed or controlled and get really intense. And the blessing I have in practicing is that when I'm about to be intense, I've got an option not to be. Because that intention, what do you think the kind of intention I'm talking about is intended to do?
Beat down the competition.
That's it. That's it, Louise. Just push it away.
Or either beat them down or have them feel like they don't have their feet under them so they can't challenge me.
But unless I have practiced enough so that I can take perspectives on the pond and what might be going on with my habits and patterns, I'm going to be absolutely convinced the problem is out there only. Yeah.
You'll see on this chart, by the way, what our friend did was, you can see how it becomes more and more about the trophy. There's a little bit of that at high performance, what kind of watch am I wearing? But it becomes almost the only thing that's in focus is, am I getting the trophies?
And again, we're not blaming people for being selfish. We have to remember most of us haven't had the benefit of having the option to understand these motivations, what's driving, and have other options.
So any questions about 3s? We need to move on a bit so we can get through the types. This is, again, the image triad. You saw the assertive version, which is 3, the dutiful version, which is 2. Now we're going to see the withdrawn version. And first, the music. So I live in a deep world as a 4. Melancholy. I think authenticity is really the deep, dark feelings of life. When people are real, you know they're suffering. When people are real, they're in touch with their pain. And in fact, I spend a lot of time in imagination fanning the flames of past hurts and potential future hurts. That's the watery, deep world that I live in. That's what makes me unique.
So what's really good about being unique?
I think you challenge the status quo and you help people break out of groupthink, and you create spaces where things can be challenged that might not otherwise be challenged.
That's right.
That's right. What else? There tends to be a lot of innovation, and also
Creativity.
Yeah, and also deep connection with people. Enneagram 4s at a high level really value the depth of connection, and at the high end, there's a love of beauty, a love of intimacy, and really making sure that that's in the workplace. That workplaces aren't sterile, that they're human.
But what happens if I demand that people see me as unique?
Well, I think you can't demand anything in a relationship and be successful at achieving it.
No, right. No, that's
You can discuss it, but you can't say you have to respect my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I work with people who say, I am, and they name their position, therefore I'm the expert on this area, or you must accept my position as being the correct one, because I'm this position.
Yeah.
And whenever I encounter that in the past, it's been my knee-jerk reaction has been, you really don't know what you're doing, and the only way you can justify it is to argue it's your right to make the sole decision, but you're unable to actually discuss it and explain it and convince others that it's the right decision.
Yeah, and what's interesting about what you're saying, Sandra's really good about bringing this in. All 9 types could do exactly what you're saying, Tom, but for different reasons. You know, an Enneagram 8 might stonewall and say, I'm right, because it's the assertiveness of that power that will make me feel safe and have you back off. An Enneagram 3 might do that out of a desperation to be the one to be told, yes, you came up with the best answer. An Enneagram 1 could do that out of a, nobody is right like I'm right, and my ideas are just right. We could go through the whole Enneagram like that. A 4 could do that, but it's going to be more, what's going to be different is if you don't value what I have to say, I'm much more likely to withdraw, to be moody, to give myself permission to be emotional about it, to be temperamental. You see that a lot more. So it's much more of an emotional reaction and a withdrawal into my own discomfort because I'm comfortable in there.
Well, and 4s will often tell, and we've heard this many, many times, the story that people don't quite get me. And they do have incredible talents. Not that other types can't have incredible creativity and bring innovation, but there's something really different about the talents of the 4 often. But because they tend to be more withdrawn, they can be not so front and center with that unique set of qualities or what they bring, and then it gets missed.
Yeah, and so going back to what we said before, at a being level, being unique is just a love of how we're all different and inherently special. I don't have to prove it. We're just all unique, you know.
There can
Beings. If I'm trying to prove that I'm unique, then I have to do it by defining myself as different from other people, which is what Sandra was saying. And that's why envy is the energy of type 4. I'm comparing myself against people. And usually deep down, as Sandra said, I feel like I'm different from other people. I'm not really as good as them. So it's kind of a negative, I have to improve myself, but I feel like there's something inherently wrong with me.
Yeah, there can be a lot of drama here that 4s will express, but that drama isn't necessarily, that's at that low average level, isn't necessarily reasonable, but it's a long-standing belief that others just don't see what I have to contribute. The tricky part of that is often 4s haven't made that clear. Okay, sometimes they have, and it's incredible, the creativity, the uniqueness, the innovation that they bring.
Yeah. I also wanted to add, there's no gender bias in the Enneagram. I mean, inherently in it. Any type could be male, female. But we carry biases about some of these types. Like Enneagram 2, a lot of women are trained to be an Enneagram 2. You know,
Part of our amniotic fluid,
Yeah.
would you not say?
You know, the nice housemaker who makes brownies for everybody, you know, kind of an image.
Or the caretaker.
Yeah. And so, and also Enneagram 4 is often seen like more of a female type, sensitive, withdrawn, kind of temperamental.
But it's not.
No, but male 4s often show up differently because of those biases. I'm coaching a male 4 who's in a very senior position here in Alberta. And you wouldn't see that moody temperamentalness. The core is very Enneagram 4, but it shows up differently because of societal expectations.
And permission to be.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
So you see the high qualities. You know, what's not to like about that? But we talked about that emotional energy of, I start defining myself by how I'm different from people, how I'm misunderstood.
That's where that drama can come from.
And what I start doing in my mind, again, is using fantasy to remember the relationship I wished I'd had but I lost, or to remember past hurts and injustice or possibilities, because I associate that with depth, the deeper, darker feelings. We'll tell a story in a minute because there's an example of a very high level 4 we'll come to soon. You'll see that the wake-up call is what we were just talking about. I'm fanning the flames of emotional intensity internally.
The drama, yeah.
The direction of integration is I'm more objective. I don't just live in a watery world. I also stand on principles and things that feel more solid. And then you see the contribution of a high level 4.
And again, we're not saying, and the Enneagram's not saying other people can't be innovative and authentic and creative, but there's something incredibly gifted in most 4s in those areas and in other areas as well. It's just like all the types, when a 4 has really owned, reflected, and decides that contribution needs to really reign to others and to the bigger picture, then things start to change. But again, we can't just decide that. We have to practice the reflection and being aware of the context we're in.
You can see the chart here. Again, the qualities of high performance that are beautiful. And again, aren't at the expense of others. That's what makes it
Like all 9, those
Yeah.
high qualities.
And you see again, average starting out, kind of overly, maybe a little romantic and passionate, but becoming moody, self-absorbed, self-conscious, withdrawing, self-indulgent as you go down. There's always a big difference between high average, which again, as our friend Russ Hudson says, is a nice day without presence. I'm not getting in trouble. I'm getting along with people. You enjoy being around me. I'm not actually self-aware.
And that's for all 9.
Yeah. And going back to what we said about stress in general, but these times in particular, and grief and loss and anxiety, the tendency, there'll be a pull to go all the way down, more and more depressed. What Enneagram 4s would do sometimes as a way to pull themselves out of it, the horizontal move, is towards suddenly taking care of other people. Normally, that's not the big focus of Enneagram 4s. They're much more focused on their own needs. But they'll suddenly shift around to take care of people, particularly people who they think have stopped caring about them.
Who do we have here?
Leonard Cohen and a lady who died from a drug overdose in she was age 29, and I know her name, but it's...
You know her
Amy
age?
Winehouse.
Amy Winehouse, yeah.
Yes, because there's this huge group that died at 29, over time, and she's one of them.
Yeah. And so it's interesting. There's a lot of 4s who have that kind of a descending into tragedy. Doesn't mean a tragic death, doesn't mean being suicidal, but who get lost in the depths of life. Leonard Cohen, we just was reading an interview with him that was probably a year or 2 before he passed. He was a deep Buddhist meditator. And he talked about watching his mechanism, which would be like watching your Enneagram pattern. And he talked about it in such sweet words like, I have this mechanism that always looks at the dark side of things. And he even said on there, and it doesn't seem like I have any choice about that. That's just what this mechanism does. But he knew that he wasn't the mechanism, that he was making choices in life. And he talked about who he was being as a parent and really loving that, but that the mechanism doesn't go away. That no matter how evolved we are, the patterns, the habits and patterns, along with the gifts, are still there. So he was a great example of somebody who watched his personality instead of being his person. Now we're moving to the last triad.
The last of the withdrawns.
The head types, and where the issues are safety and security. Sometimes this is called the fear triad. So sometimes 8, 9, and 1 are called the anger triad, 2, 3, and 4, the shame triad, 5, 6, and 7, fear, even though you'll see that not all types let you know that fear is under there, but they all have issues around safety and security. And what we'll see is that there's an assertive way of dealing with fears around safety and security, a withdrawn version, and a dutiful type.
And 5s have incredible gifts, as do all 9 types. But first, we're going to hear the music.
I always have to first the music. I have kind of a weird mind. It's very rational. But I kind of like the odd things in life, dark side cartoons. I live in a very internal world. I make sense of things. I have this inner tinker toy. I'm always trying to figure out the world, but I'm very much within me in a way that's very mental. Out of all the types, I'm the most comfortable just being inside my head, which can be pretty weird to other people, but I really enjoy it.
So what's really good about knowing, and let me say a few words about it before you answer me. The kind of knowing is often fives have spent a lifetime of getting to know whatever it is they think is important or they want to do, and the whole knowledge that's needed to be really good at that. So what does that kind of knowing bring?
I just want to add one thing and then have you answer. Our friend Russ Hudson, again, who is a 5, talks about this 2 qualities of that knowing. Illumination, having people see things they've never seen before, and also that they're the bug zappers of the Enneagram, the ones who love pointing out when someone doesn't know their stuff.
Okay, so, but what's the gift in bringing knowing and bringing a real passion for finding out how it works?
They go deep on a topic and not just surface level, so they strive to know the full story and context on things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and by the way, that's why in general, not always true, but many of the most innovative thinkers, the people who didn't want to just believe what other people had said, but they wanted to form their own systems, have been 5s. Einstein, Stephen Hawking are great examples of people who wanted to have a total, model of the universe and didn't want to just believe other people's ideas.
So but what happens when I absolutely demand that I have to know? How am I going to treat myself? And how am I going to be not available?
It's never enough.
That's right. I can never know enough.
Correct.
So again, just like all 9 types, that striving is a real gift. But when I turn that on myself and I demand, then I don't have the options to use those gifts in a way that contributes to me and to others in a way that it could. And in particular, a 5 is a withdrawn type. And so 5s often, it's hard for us to watch sometimes. 5s have these incredible gifts, like we say, know how things work. I worked for 11 years as lead organization development consultant with Bell Laboratories. There were a plethora of 5s. They're the reason we have these incredible instruments of communication around us. They're Nobel Prize scientists in tech. But they were just tortured in a lot of ways because they could never know enough. One funny story is often they would tell stories about when they were little kids, they'd look at an appliance in the home and think, wow, that looks like it'd be fun to take apart. Take it all apart. Guess where they lost interest? Putting it back together.
Yes, and the other part of that, just building on what Sandra was saying, is when you look at those words from perceptive and innovative, but they're becoming more and more secretive and detached. This is the withdrawing version of safety and security. And so if I just knew enough, then maybe I could come out, but I'm never going to know enough. And part of that detachment is you're going to learn lots and lots about my ideas, but you're not going to get to know me. I'm going to keep that hidden. And so when I joined Sandra in that work with some of those people,
incredible.
Yeah, 5s at the average level, their eyes are like one-way mirrors. So they're taking you in deeply. They are studying you, but they're not giving you any information back. And I remember we'd be there and we'd be doing some kind of a training and we'd say to people, do something, throw tomatoes, applaud, give us some feedback, because the tendency is I'm so in here, I'm just not giving you much of me. I'll give you my ideas maybe, but I'm not showing you my reactions. We use the image sometimes of that 5s can be like people who live in a castle with a moat and a drawbridge. 5s are actually incredibly sensitive people, but they're very careful who they let in.
But often are very lonely and don't know why they're lonely. Why might they be lonely? there's good information to show that as little ones, often they made decisions that it was too much energy to let other people in, more interested in the knowing because it was safer, you had more control. And so that's a sad thing sometimes to watch with all 9 types in our challenges, but in particular to come into contact with a 5 that's so lonely but doesn't realize they're not making themselves known.
Yeah. Or what happens to some 5s is, using that image again of a moat and a drawbridge, they'll let a couple of people in because 5s often have a sense of, once they let you in, you're in. You're in my heart and I'm kind of defenseless. I have to be really careful. And so those small number of people, there is a real intimate connection, but no one else gets to really know who they are.
Mhm. But incredible gifted beings too. So just like with all 9 types, with the benefit of being able to reflect, with being able to know what's possible, not just about how to put things together, but to contribute and interact. Beautiful gifts. Okay.
The core qualities.
Look at that, inner knowing, clarity, capacity to be illuminated.
And dispel an illusion. That's what Russ talked about as the bug zappers of the Enneagram. The expression, not suffering fools gladly. We can all have that, but it's 5 is a home of that. If you say something and I can tell that you don't really know your stuff, I almost feel compelled to, to show that the emperor doesn't have any clothes on. You don't have a right to be coming to the conclusions you do. And again, I'm trying to build understanding by withdrawing, but the more I withdraw from life, also the less I know on a deep level, but the less people get to know me. And that's why the emotional energy is called avarice. It doesn't mean I'm stingy with money. It means it means I'm stingy with me. You don't get to know me. And what the mind does is becomes just conceptual. I pull back into my head and I sort of cut myself off from feelings.
Yeah, like all 9 types, you can see the trap in what happens when I'm so-called stingy about what I'm willing to share about myself, and other people can't come in. And then that loneliness, like we talked about. But it's not from wanting to be a negative person. It's just very early on patterns. And the basic desire at that average level of development is, how much can I know? And that doesn't always bring in other humans.
The quality of 5s that brings them from high performance down to the average level, the wake-up call, is I need to be separate from people so my mind won't be disturbed. I need to pull back. I need to not be impacted.
And that's, again, a very early decision that little 5s reportedly need.
The direction of integration is to be out there in the world, to share my ideas, to put myself out there, which feels very vulnerable to a 5, to get into action. Because like Sandra said, 5s tend to see a huge amount in a meeting, because 5s are the strongest observers on the Enneagram. They see things, 5s often have had the experience of being at parties, maybe when they were young, or maybe still, and it's almost like they're an anthropologist studying some weird tribe, even though those tribes are humans. I'm just trying to figure people out, but I'm not telling them what I'm coming to. But when 5s move into action, you see the contribution. They facilitate brilliance.
Incredible, like all 9 types, incredible. And what I got to see and with those creators at Bell Labs was amazing.
The cartoon.
What do you think? Why do you think that might be true with what we're seeing? Why would people get in the way? What's my major goal at the average level here?
I think the goal of knowing means that you can't really be bothered with either pleasing or interacting with other people because they're not on the same path as you, and you have to, it just wastes your time.
That's right, it would get in my way, wouldn't it? But once I have that higher level development, I see that I'm getting in my own way by not bringing in others. But just think about from a very early age to have the gifts of knowing things, how things fit together, incredible creativity. All 9 types can be incredibly creative in different ways. But
Yeah.
we are on this Zoom call because of 5s.
There was a beautiful biography of Einstein. I think it was Eisenstein. I have to, but it was. I mean, in the end, at least when I read it, I cried because you get so connected to him as a human being. And he was remarkable humanitarian. Things that he did related to Nazism, the things that he did going around.
You made the contribution.
The contributions,
Yeah,
were astounding. But this literally a line somewhere in there that would be like, he loved humanity, tolerated people. He was not easy to get along with, even though his love of humanity and the things that he did to contribute to the world were astounding. And our 2 examples, one of them.
Who is it? Obviously Einstein's one of them, but who's the other one?
You might have recognized the Unabomber,
I don't know why you would.
that I'm going to sit in my little cave and send out bombs. You see again, the high qualities, the high performance.
Incredible.
And what's really good about looking at high performance is every type is beautiful, but they're still all different. The flavor, even at the expansive level where I'm just contributing my gifts, I'm not self-focused, which is what high performance is. My life is about service to my values. The flavor is very different. It's like 9 different great flavors of gelato. They are different. So this is the different qualities than we just saw on the 4, for example. And again, under stress, loss, anxiety, first I start to become more detached.
And I don't know it. This is the thing. As I go down in development and functioning, I don't know that I'm looking at and following patterns. I believe this is what's required of me, and it's what I've always done.
Yeah, I become increasingly antagonistic. Again, just pointing out all the things other people are doing that aren't intelligent. And my horizontal move under stress, sadness, is suddenly to get flighty. So again, each horizontal move is very different. So I'm going to become hyperactive. I'm going to go in. I just got to travel. I got to get out of here. I got to move. I got to. It can look a little OCD, but it's a way to stop from dropping even further.
Okay, let's not forget they've brought incredible gifts to us, and there are those challenges, as with all 9 types. That, and just because a type is withdrawn doesn't mean it's more of a problem than an overly assertive, aggressive type, is it? It's just a way they show up.
Aren't the assertives always better?
Absolutely.
Okay. So now, so again, there was drawn version of safety and security. Now we're going to go to the dutiful version of safety and security. I want to be safe and secure, but the world seems so uncertain. I'm always looking for what could go wrong, what shoe could drop. So there's always this level of anxiety in me, and sometimes I think if I'm just a good enough team player, if I build people around me, if I become a good friend, maybe I'll be safe. But there's this underlying agitation in me, anxiety that has me being hyper aware of what could happen, what could go wrong.
So what's really good about feeling like and driving to be secure?
We help to make contingency plans and plan for disaster and pandemics.
Absolutely. And we have a really good friend who talks about when he was a little boy in the family car, what he was spending most of his time in his mind doing was, what if there's a problem and what could we make sure that we've taken care of? And he's definitely a person you want to go backpacking with, because guess what's in his pack? All the what ifs answered.
Well, by the way, unlike me, if I borrow a tent or buy one, I just set it up out there. I would never even think to set it up in the yard first to make sure all the parts are there. And so at high levels, sixes do that. There's a, sixes tend to be the best drivers. They're the ones looking for, what would I do if that person moved into my lane? And they also have that role on teams in a way that's really productive. They're just able to see the things that could happen before they happen so people can plan about it appropriately. There's an organization here in town, and somebody was typed on her assessment as a 2. And we were talking, and it didn't seem like it fit, this is what we'll do with you one-on-one. And I happened to be asking her questions about image and doing these people, and she's like, yeah, kind of. But then we're looking for it might be true. We got to 6. And as soon as I started asking things like preparing for emergencies, she lit up. I mean, she was smiling about, I just got married and we got this new place and we're on the 3rd floor. I said, so have you figured out what you would do in a fire? Of course. I mean, I would tie together bed sheets and I have the plan for how I would do that. No, have you studied what kind of knots you'd use? And she lit up again. Yes, I looked at that and I know just what kind of knots will hold me and my husband. There's sort of a playful knowing that I'm planning. And also at the high end, because sixes are driven to feel secure, they don't need to be in the limelight. They don't need to be the one usually where there's a spotlight on them. They like being part of a team. There's a security in being part of a group that's achieving together.
But what is the issue with demanding that I be secure?
So we can see going from committed down to anxious and suspicious. I become the naysayer. I become always saying, no, we can't do that. There's a problem with that. I'm so focused on that it's very hard for me to get into action. And so instead of being seen as really supportive, which high level sixes do, teams love them, I'm seen as the person who keeps talking about the roadblocks.
This is what if, and lots of anxiety, because like the other types, the demand is that I not be in situations where I'm not secure. But as you probably know, is that under our control? Not always, definitely not. And so, yeah, this causes a lot of anxiety, and a lot of times it's not recognized at the average level. At a high level, they bring incredible security to groups, organizations, because again, they're anticipating what's needed. But you can see that the incredible challenges in being a 6 if your rhetoric most of the time is what if, at the average level, not at the high level.
Yeah, and we could say at this point, there are 2 types that tend to have the hardest time typing themselves. One of them are 9s, because 9s have a gift of seeing other people's perspectives. But a 9 can get lost in that because they have a hard time seeing their own perspective. So yeah, a 1, I could be that. I could be a 2. So there's sort of an affirming, I could be those other types. 6's mind is the opposite. 6 is yes, but. Well, I could be a 1, but then it doesn't fit. I could be a 2, but yes, but. And so they go through all 9 types. And that's one of the best ways to know that somebody probably is a 6, is that kind of yes, but, yes, but. You can see the core qualities. When 6's minds are quiet, they have a natural sense of what the next step is. They have a natural sense of direction. And also they love being part of something bigger. This is a 6 at a high level. Strategy is, if I could just find enough guidance and support, then I'd have safety.
Yeah, and
security.
this one is all development related, as it is with all 9, because you can see that if I'm never sure at that average level that there is enough guidance and support, I'm not going to be satisfied with any situation where I need to get the right information. But at a high level, they provide a lot of guidance and support because they've gone through and looked at so many different options.
Yeah. And so you can even see in this, and again, every type, unfortunately, what they do gets in the way of them having their core qualities. So a 6's core qualities show up in a quiet mind. But usually what they do is, if I could just think about things enough, then I know what to do. But the more I think, the more I lose touch with my natural gifts.
Why would that be? From what you're hearing, how would someone lose touch with their natural gifts by thinking so much?
I mean, the expression, I think, is you overthink something.
Mhm.
And you start to doubt your first instinctive response, or your well-researched instinctive response, and think maybe it's something else.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's all because you just don't stop, perhaps, thinking about it when you should have.
That's right. And that you used a key word and quality at the average level, low average level of the 6, doubt. Because if I'm not doubting, I might be missing something. All right. But you could see the trap in that.
Yeah. And so the emotional energy is angst is the best term. It's a kind of anxiety, but you see, it's like at a high level, it's awakeness, but then it's, I have to watch out what could go wrong. Oh, now I'm really worried what could go wrong. It's almost like I can't go to sleep because what could happen. And so it evolves vigilance, hypervigilance, being overly suspicious. And then the habit of mind, like Sandra says, is doubting, worry. The wake-up call, instead of trusting my own knowing, I keep looking outside of me for something that'll give me guidance. And that something could be a belief system. It could be being drawn to being like a team sport or something where there are rules I can follow. That the more there's some external structure that I can count on, the less I have anxiety.
So that's what shows up the most, again, at that low average level or average level with Enneagram 6s, is they really doubt their own wisdom often. And so they're always looking outside themselves. But the irony is a lot of times they already have what it takes to address what's taking place, but they're in their own way and in their own way of contributing.
You can see the direction of integration, which is relaxing, mindfulness. I mean, we all need mindfulness, but for a 6, learning to quiet that mind is really important. And when they do that, they start trusting themselves more. And you see the high level contributions of the 6.
Yeah, incredible how they can become amazing team players at a high level.
Yeah.
Why do you think they would make amazing team players from all that we're talking about at a high level?
Is it because that they can like see what other people have to contribute to making plans?
Well, they can also see a whole lot of options because they're looking at a lot of possibilities, aren't they? They get in their own way at the average level, but at the high level, they're seeing those options and really know that they don't have to pull them off all themselves. They can be in it together. So yeah, there's major contributions.
Oh, yeah, and one thing we didn't mention is how there's often different styles of humor of the different types. And 5s, for example, I think I mentioned this briefly, are into the bizarre, macabre, the
Not
far,
all
the,
5s.
but often, like the Far Side cartoons, Stephen King kind of things. 6s tend to have a very lovely, self-deprecating kind of humor, where they kind of poke fun at themselves in a way that has other people feel more safe and secure. You see, again, the beautiful high qualities. And again, organized at the high average is great, but become more indecisive, procrastinating, suspicious. And then
Can you say that piece about the self-deprecation again? Sorry.
Sure. It's a kind of humor a lot of 6s have because it helps. Well, it does. Self-deprecating humor does 2 things for a 6. One of them is if I'm poking fun at myself, you won't do it, and so I can feel a little more safe. But it's also, it helps bring other people together in a way that's not aggressive. It's not poking at people. It's
Giving permission for others
to
do the same.
Yeah. So you can see whether it's stress in general, whether it's sadness, anxiety, the direction of stress for 6. And 6s movement, the horizontal movement to try to kind of stem the bleeding, is to move into high activity, suddenly becoming workaholic-like. What we've also seen, one friend of ours in particular, is I take on some of the negative qualities of a 3. I become more chameleon-like. I try to pretend to be whatever I think is needed so that I'll have safety and security. I know I'm doing it, but I'm playing a role because I'm desperate to have that safety and security. In our exemplars, this isn't about a high level and a low level. It's 2 very different ways 6s can show up.
Who do we have here?
Mike Tyson
Yes.
Yes,
and Woody Allen.
you got it.
Yeah. There's one version of Enneagram 6, which is like, I'm gonna be, and this is the self-deprecating humor part, which was Woody Allen's, was wonderful at. It's like, I'm gonna just be so unassuming, and that you won't attack me and you'll like me and I'll have safety and security. And there's another way of dealing with anxiety, which is I will be so strong that I'll show you I don't have fear. I'm gonna be the person who moves right into fear. Another example for Enneagram 6 is Evel Knievel. I'm gonna, ride my motorcycle over the Grand Canyon. I'm gonna do all these stunts, but I'm doing them because my life is driven by fear. I'm just trying to show how fearless I am because of how fearful I really am. So it's 2 very different expressions of Enneagram 6. This would be the assertive version of safety and security. I just like having a great time. Isn't life great when you can just see all the positives in life? And I just go for more and more pleasurable, fun things. I'm always going to the next exciting thing, and then I'm planning for what I'll do after that. Because life is about having fun, isn't it?
Is there any other thing of value in life than being excited? So what's really good about bringing excitement to others and to themselves?
Yes, driving the feel that way.
What's really good?
We can inspire, bring in energy.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah, at high level, 7s are they're the natural child of the Enneagram in a positive way. Whatever we're doing, how can we be playful about that? How can we enjoy this? How can we make this fun? Even if we're cleaning toilets, what's the way to enjoy the experience?
But what happens when I demand that whatever I'm doing be exciting? What are going to be some of my foibles and characters? I don't want to do things unless they're exciting.
Well, there's going to be some tasks you just don't want to do.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
especially if I've done them more than a couple times.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
what's typical of Enneagram 7s until they've done a lot of work is, the crossing the T's, the dotting the I's is just, it's just too much work. And so I can tend to not follow through on things. I love the high energy brainstorming, coming up with new ideas. That stuff is really fun. But the follow through, the commitment, that gets tough. And so commitment, and part of that for a 7 is I always want to have options. Freedom is so big for an Enneagram 7, and at the high level, it's knowing the freedom of who I am. But at the average level, it's I have to generate freedom by doing many things, by getting involved in many tasks. And being committed to one thing means I have to say no to other things, and saying no to any option for most Enneagram 7s is kind of like a little debt. And so it's hard to follow through.
But at that high level, they bring incredible enthusiasm and assist others in joining in that.
Yeah.
So there's incredible gifts here.
Mm-hmm. We have an Enneagram 7.
Like all the 9 types, I hope you're hearing, but anyway.
Yeah. This is just something about how sometimes the impact of context. We have a client who's a high level person in the government, who's an Enneagram 7. And
Canadian government, that we're both.
yeah, and he does dot the I's and cross the T's impeccably. But the reason for that is he went through military school where you have no choice. But we once said to him, what do you think would have happened if he hadn't gone to military college? He said, I probably would have been in college about 8 years. It would have been, just playing and having fun. And
Bored.
yeah.
Bored still, yeah.
So what you see on the surface is somebody who's very much into detailed charts and following through. But that was a learned behavior. It's not the natural. You see the core qualities. Freedom is a big thing. And gratitude. The beauty of life is a very high end. If you're a 7, you look at those and you go, yeah, that's what life is about.
I'm sure you can see that all of these core qualities at a high level bring incredible gifts to individuals that carry them and to others and organizations.
Yeah, and you see the wrong turn here, just like all types have a wrong turn. At high level 7, I know that's who I am. That's my being. But when I lose touch with that essence, then I think if I could just get enough stimulating experiences, then I'd have joy, and freedom becomes having lots and lots of options.
Regardless of whether or not I followed through, can be.
And so you see the emotional energy, which is gluttony. I don't know what I really need, so I'm just going to get as much as I can, hoping that I'll, someday I'll find the perfect wave.
Because what would happen if they landed and finally said, this is what I need? What do you think their fear would be of landing like that?
That they got it wrong and missed out.
Yeah, and that they're bored. It's boring. I already got it. Come on, there's got to be more.
And what Gary said is exactly right. The fear of missing out is really big.
Yeah.
And so the emotional energy is gluttony. The habit of mind is anticipating what's next. We use the example here of, and this would be the difference between a high performance Enneagram 7 and an average, slow average. I'm at a buffet and I'm eating my appetizer, but I'm thinking so much about which entree do I want that it's hard to really enjoy it because there's so many options I saw that look really good. And then I'm having my entree, but I'm thinking about which one of those desserts. And then I'm having a dessert, but I was invited to 3 parties and I said yes to all of them tonight. Which one am I going to actually say yes and no to? So I'm never really present enough to enjoy fully. I'm always thinking about next and next. And that's the wake-up call. I'm doing this, but something else could be even better.
And you understand what that means by the wake-up call, that's our opportunity if we're practicing and we're reflecting and we want to contribute optimally, is that we need to know what kind of habits are showing up that would let me know that I need to pay special attention and not feed them.
Yeah, so when Sandra talks so much about having a practice of reflection, the wake-up calls are a great thing for all types to reflect on, because for each one of them, it's a line between high performance and average. So this is what pulls me in if I bite on it. And so you can see the 7, what they would bite on. And the direction of integration is getting focused, saying no to things, having a clear direction. And when they do that, they're still playful, lighthearted, but they also really get stuff done. And they bring people along in a way that's really joyful. The pictures we have here, the one that our friend did of the acute chronic stress is pretty amazing. You can see that here it's about the color of everything. That's the high end. And again, the high qualities are just beautiful. If the 7 buys into the wake-up call, they start moving into the average level, which gets more and more scattered, unsatisfied with whatever they do. If 7s drop down here, then you get that whirlwind. That's John Belushi. Could be, Robin Williams is a pretty classic 7. The incredibly versatile mind, that kind of humor is very Enneagram 7-ish. I guess for him, there were particular things that led to his suicide that could be different from this. But what 7s do, and you'll see this if you're a 7 or if there's any 7s in your group, under stress, they suddenly become quite sharp and critical. This person who you've seen as just playful, happy-go-lucky, engaging, suddenly is very judgmental. And it's their way of trying not to drop down even further. Our 2 examples, well, we just named one of them.
Who's the other one?
Richard Branson. I feel like everyone's letting me answer these, so I feel good about myself.
What's interesting about Richard Branson, besides being really valued, is that he starts things and then hands them off, right? Whether it's a record company or record stores, or whether it's airlines, whatever he does, he gets involved in the high energy brainstorming thing, and then he hands it off to somebody else to do something else that's really interesting and fun.
That he wouldn't necessarily find interesting.
Yeah.